Good morning, guys. In this video, we will cover the transverse tarsal joint. It is in the previous videos we have seen biomechanics of ankle complex. First, we completed the ankle joint, the talocrural joint. The second video we completed the subtalar joint, and today is the third video. We are going in for the transverse tarsal joint. It is called as the mid. It is a part of the midfoot. Fine. It is a part of a midfoot, where you can see it is a part of a midfoot. This was the subtalar joint, and the talocrural joint was a part of hind foot. Now we have all come to the second part, which is the midfoot. So the midfoot is the mid-tarsal joint, which is basically the talonavicular joint. Can you see this? This is the talus and this is the navicular, and then there is calcaneocuboid joint. Now if you see the structure, if you see this structure, this is the structure. You can see the calcaneocuboid, and this is the talonavicular. So this is basically an S-shaped joint. It is also called as a Chopard joint. Fine. Talonavicular and calcaneocuboid. It is an S-shaped line, and it is a connection between the hind foot and the forefoot. You can see it in this diagram also. It is a proper S-shaped structure is there. Fine. And what do you see over here is that you need to remember is the hind foot was really mobile, and the forefoot is also really mobile, but the midfoot is actually immobile. The midfoot is basically immobile. It is basically transmitting the forces to the forefoot. It is actually dissipating the forces, and it is the motion at the talocalcaneal joint is on a fixed the naviculocuboid joint. If I unit, you can say there is no naviculocuboid joint, but there is a navicular. I am saying navicular and cuboid unit, or at the fixed mid-tarsal midfoot, at a fixed midfoot. The motion at the calcaneum and talus is happening on a fixed midfoot. Fine. This is very much important. Fine. So let us see what is the transverse tarsal joint. Now it is formed between the two joints. You understand it is formed between the talus and the navicle. Now if you can see, this is talus and this is navicle. The proximal part, it is formed from the interior surface of the head of the talus, which is convex. Fine. And this is, you can see, a concave surface of the concave posterior aspects of the navicle. You can see this structure. This is a convex anterior surface of the talus and concave posterior surface of the navicular bone. This has been formed. Fine. And now this is the surface, and now what are the all ligaments which are responsible for it? Now you remember the joint capsule. It is sharing the joint capsule with the anterior medial talocalcaneal joint. Fine. So that articulation, and this transverse or talonavicular joint is holding one capsule. Now it has been supported by a very important ligament, which is called as a spring ligament. Now before I go to spring ligament, there are other ligaments also over here. So you can see there should be medially it is supported by the deltoid ligament. It has also been supported laterally, little bit laterally, by bifurcate ligament. Fine. Its medial band, and inferiorly, there is on the plantar surface, it has been holded by the calcaneonavicular ligament. Calcaneonavicular ligament. The spring ligament has got two parts. It has got a long and the small fibers. So they are basically holding the if I can say, it is a triangular structure, and which is arising from the substantia tali, which I have already shown you, the substantia tali, and herein it is holding, and from the calcaneum it is going up to the holding the calcaneum with the navicle. So it is a long fibers which are holding the calcaneum with the navicular. So it's a kind of a fibrous fascia, which is having a triangular shape, which whose apex is at the substanticulum tali, and it is basically moving towards the navicular with its two fibers. It has been supported medially by the deltoid ligament and laterally by the bifurcate ligament. Fine. So herein I can show you this in a diagram. If you can see, this is basically on the this is basically the spring ligament. If this is the spring ligament, it has been supported on medial side by the deltoid ligament, on the lateral side by the bifurcate ligament. So the spring ligament is on the inferior surface. It is from the calcaneum, it is going up to the navicular bone. Fine. So you can go through this. It is basically two ligaments are there, spring ligaments and bifurcate ligament. The spring ligament basically it holds the it is very important because it holds the arches also. We will discuss about it later on. Okay, the spring ligament is receives the support from the medial collateral and lateral collateral ligament. It also receives the support from the extensor retinacular structures and all the interosseous talocalcaneal ligaments. So basically all the ligaments are nearby only. The interosseous ligaments, the cervical ligament, the retinacular structures, the medial and lateral collateral ligaments, and along with that the important ligament at the talonavicular joint is the new ligament, is the spring ligament, and it holds the basically the arches. This ligament plays a very crucial role as it limits the basically the medial longitudinal arch. Fine. Now, spring ligament is called as plantar calcano-navicular ligament. It's a triangular sheet of ligamentous connective tissue which originates from the sustentaculum tali of the calcaneum and inserts in the inferior navicular bone. Its role is to support the head and the talonavicular joint, and it plays a very crucial role in maintenance and support of medial longitudinal arch. Fine. This ligament has got very less elasticity. Fine. And the next joint is the calcano-cuboid joint. Now, calcano-cuboid joint, it is formed between the, now you can see if this is the structure, it is calcano-cuboid joint. It is formed between the interior surface of the calcaneum and the posterior cuboid. Fine. Interior surface of the calcaneum and the posterior cuboid. The interior surface is, this is basically kind of a reciprocally concavo-convex. Okay, it is a reciprocally concavo-convex, we can say. Fine. So the motion is reciprocal motion is taking place. Now there is calcano-cuboid joint like talonavicular joint is linked in weight bearing to the subtalar joint. Now in weight bearing, the subtalar supination and pronation, the inversion eversion of the calcaneus on the talus causes the calcaneus to move simultaneously on a fixed cuboid bone, bringing about a twisting movement. Their action basically comes in weight bearing position. Otherwise it is a fixed joint, that is a fixed unit. Navicle and this cuboid is a fixed unit. Fine. Its action only comes into being when in weight bearing position. In non weight bearing, it acts as a fixed unit. We will discuss about it in the motions. Now let us see the capsule. Now you understand this is the capsule. It has got its own capsule and it has been surrounded by, there is a plantar ligament over here. This is called the long and the short plantar ligament, which supports the calcano-cuboid joint and it holds the longitudinal arch of the foot. Now this plantar ligament arises from the inferior surface of the calcaneum and cuboid, and it goes up to the second and third metacarpal. So that is why it is called as long and short fibers of the plantar ligaments. They are basically supported from inferiorly. Of course, the short and the long, they are supported from inferiorly, and again dorsally it has got the calcano-cuboid ligament, and there is again the part of bifurcate ligament is holding it from the lateral side. So you can see the ligaments over here on the lateral side by the bifurcate ligament, dorsally by the calcano-cuboid ligament, and inferiorly by the plantar and the long and the short plantar ligament. Now if you see the axis is, the transverse tarsal joint has got two axes. It has got two axes. It has got a longitudinal axis as well as an oblique axis. Fine. So the longitudinal axis is, if you can see, it is 15 degree upwards in transverse plane and 9 degree medially to the sagittal plane. 15 degree upwards, if you can see this, longitudinal axis is 15 degree upwards from the transverse plane and 9 degree away from the sagittal plane. Can you see this angle? This is the longitudinal axis. This is the longitudinal axis. It is passing through the talus and the navicle. It is passing through the talus and the navicle. Fine. You can see the longitudinal axis is nearly horizontal. It is 15 degree upwards in the transverse plane and 9 degree medially in the sagittal plane. Fine. The motion around this axis is triplanar. That is supination and pronation, with coupled movement similar to that of subtalar joint, but similarly including both the talus and calcaneum segment moving on navicle and cuboid segment. Fine. So the motion is in this plane, in longitudinal plane, is similar to the motion of subtalar joint. Fine. The longitudinal axis motion is similar to the motion of what is taking place in the talus and the calcaneum, what is taking place at the subtalar joint. Fine. But it has got another axis which is called as the oblique axis. The oblique axis of the transverse tarsal joint is 57 degree medial to in sagittal plane and 52 degree superior to in transverse plane. You can see this in the, it is 57 degree to the sagittal plane and 52 degree to this plane. So you can see the difference. This is an oblique axis. There is a second axis also which is happening. Let us go through. Oblique axis is 57 degree medial to the sagittal plane and 52 degree in the transverse plane. Fine. Now this is another axis on which the movement will take place. Now let us see the transverse tarsal joint function. Now try to understand one important thing here is in weight bearing position. Whenever in the weight bearing position, when the weight is passing through the ankle joint, the subtalar joint includes the motion which is possible is at the talus. At this includes talar abduction, adduction or dorsi or plantar flexion. Fine. In the weight bearing position, the calcaneum motion which is happening, you remember there was inversion and eversion movement. This calcaneal motion will take place along with calcaneocuboid joint. In weight bearing position, the calcaneal motion was inversion and eversion. This motion will be carried over by the calcaneocuboid joint. But in there was another motion, that is adduction, abduction and dorsiflexion and plantar flexion at talus. This will be carried about, or this will be carried on by the talonavicular joint. So you should remember this. So that is in weight bearing position, this transverse tarsal joint takes role. That means the role of calcaneal, the calcaneal motion is carried over by the calcaneocuboid and the talar motion is carried over by the talonavicular joint. Now let us see this. Now when the subtalar joint is fully supinated, now when it is supination takes place, that is locking of the bony surface. Supination brings about locking of the bony surface together. The transverse tarsal joint also go in supination. We know that the close packed position of the subtalar joint is supination. In supination there is no further motion is possible because it is totally locked. It is locked in this position. So because the supination, there is in transverse tarsal joint also there is a supination which takes place, that is they are in a locked position. Fine. So when the subtalar joint is pronated, so in supination is the locking position or the close packed position of subtalar joint, and similarly it is a close packed position for the talar joint also, transverse tarsal joint. Whereas subtalar joint pronation is a loose packed position, and therefore in transverse tarsal joint also it is a loose packed position for this, that is motion takes place only in supinated foot. Fine. So the transverse tarsal joint is a link basically between the hind and the forefoot. Fine. It is a link between the hind foot and the forefoot. Now it basically acts is it basically compensates the forefoot for hind foot. It is basically compensate. It is a link between the two. So and it shows a compensatory or a twisting movement also. Now when this movement is possible, by the above slide you can see that when the subtalar joint goes into locking position, the talar also goes, transverse talar tarsal also goes into a locking position. That is supinated is a locking position of the subtalar and the transverse tarsal joint. When the subtalar joint goes into pronation, that is a loose packed position, then only the transverse tarsal joint has ability or to move. It becomes mobile. So the mobility is only possible in pronation. Fine. Now let us see this in a flowchart form so that it is easy for you to understand. Now what happens here is weight bearing hind foot pronation. When the in weight bearing position, when the hind foot goes into pronation, but then only this movement is possible. So in weight bearing, when the hind foot goes into pronation, that is in the weight bearing position, there will be medial rotation. I cannot show you on this. So let us go through this in this form only. And the flow chart, when we are talking about pronation, that is a loose packed position. for the foot. What happens at the transverse tarsal joint? In a weight bearing position, there is medial rotation of the tibia, which is imposed by the subtalar motion. You have to see that coupled joint. In the previous video, we have studied about the coupled motion of the subtalar joint in non-weight bearing and in weight bearing. So in weight bearing and in pronation, it is brings about a medial rotation of the tibia, and you have to go through and just refer to that point. So in weight bearing position, there is a medial rotation of the tibia which imposes a pronation of the subtalar joint. If the pronation force continues distally through the foot, the lateral border of the foot will tend to lift. Now what happens is medial rotation will bring about a pronation at the subtalar joint. Now if this continues, if the transverse tarsal joint continues with pronation only, the lateral border of the foot will raise. Now as soon as the lateral border of the foot will raise, it will decrease the base of support and the stability of the foot will decrease. That is, it will be uneven weight bearing and it will produce unnecessary stress at multiple joint. Fine. So what is happening in weight bearing? There is a medial rotation of the tibia which causes pronation of the subtalar joint, and if this subtalar joint or pronation continues at the transverse tarsal joint, the lateral surface of the foot will be raised, and this will cause a decrease in the base of support and decrease in weight bearing, and their chances of stress will increase. Now to avoid this the forefoot should come flat on the ground. To avoid this imbalance, instability, decrease in base of support, what does the transverse tarsal joint, since it is do, because it transmits the force and compensates for the forefoot. Now what does it do? It absorbs this hind foot pronation. This is a very important word, is it absorbs this hind foot pronation. Okay? And therefore it absorbs this movement, and it absorbs this movement and it becomes mobile over here, because pronated is a loose pack position of the foot, and as well as for the subtalar joint and the transverse tarsal joint. So the transverse tarsal become mobile and it absorbs this hind foot pronation. Fine. And when the talus and the calcaneum moves on the navo-cuboid unit, there is a relative supination of the bony segments distal to the transverse tarsal joint. So it brings about little bit of supinated motion so that the foot goes into flat to the ground. The foot becomes relatively flat to the ground. So the foot is relatively flat to the ground. I wanted to underline this. The foot really goes flat to the ground. So what happens is it tries to absorb this pronated force of the hind foot, and there is a relative supination at the transverse tarsal joint. Relatively supination at the transverse tarsal joint. Fine. So this is the screwing movement or the screw-like motion of the transverse tarsal joint at the triplanar motion. I wanted to show you in this form also, which is there in your book also. Now if you can see, this is with pronation occurring at the subtalar joint. When there is a subtalar joint pronation which is brought about by the medial rotation of the leg. So the transverse tarsal joint can either go, it has got two options. It can either supinate or it can either pronate. Now in the first case there is supination, because there is a subtalar joint pronation is happening and medial rotation of the leg is taking place, and there is a pronation of the subtalar joint. The transverse tarsal joint can go into supinate, and this will basically lock the forefoot. This will basically lock the forefoot. Now but in the second point you can see the pronation is bringing about, which is a normal condition. It is pronate very slightly along with the pronation of subtalar joint, which is seen in a neutral position or a neutral standing, normal standing position. Now the third thing which can happen is it can compensate in the supination position, and thus in weight bearing position supinate and then balance on an uneven terrain. In an uneven terrain. So this is a normal condition. In normal standing, let me show. Okay. This is in normal condition. In normal standing, there is a mild degree of pronation. The pronation of subtalar joint brings about a mild degree of pronation and helps to balance the foot. Fine. Whereas it can either go into supination or it can go into proper pronation. So when it goes into supination, when it goes into supination, in this condition, when it goes into supination, it brings about locking position of the forefoot. Now the forefoot is locked in this position. Fine, this is a close packed position of the transverse tarsal joint. And when the person is walking in a uneven terrain, the foot goes into pronation, because we want a base of support, good base of support, because otherwise we will fall. So it can go into pronation also. So this shows that the transverse tarsal joint can either, in a weight bearing position, and that too when the subtalar joint goes into pronation, there is a rotational motion which is happening in the leg, and there is a supination motion which is happening in the motion which is taking place. So what is happening is it can either assume a supination, or it can either assume a pronation position, depending upon, so it is transmitting all the forces along. Fine. So let us go through this. As the bony and the ligamental structures of the subtalar joint draw the talus and calcaneum close together and becomes in a close packed position, that is in a supinated position, the navicular and the cuboid bone also goes into a supination position. So the transverse tarsal joint mobility is increased and increasingly limited at the subtalar joint motion in supination. That means if the subtalar joint goes into supination, the transverse tarsal joint also comes into a close packed position. That is there is no motion which is taking place, but that is with increasing supination of the subtalar joint, the transverse tarsal joint cannot absorb this additional rotation but begins to move towards supination as well. Fine. So there is a chances that it moves initially. If it is less amount is there, then it can it can absorb this movement, but then if the full supination takes place at subtalar joint, there is no option but for the transverse tarsal joint also to go into a close packed position. Now if full subtalar supination, such as when the tibia is maximally laterally rotated on a weight bearing foot, the supination locks not only the subtalar joint but transverse tarsal joint. That is, in full supination, what will happen is, when the full supination at subtalar joint takes place, there is no other option but the transverse tarsal joint also goes into full supination. That is, fully supinated subtalar joint, talar joint and transverse tarsal joint will shift the weight to the forefoot, and there will be a lateral lifting up of the border of the foot takes place, and the entire medial, that is, there is a weight bearing on the lateral border of the foot, and the medial border is lifted up. So unless there is muscles of the foot are acting, there will not be, or there can be chances of getting a supination sprain of the lateral ligament can take place over here. When the what does this mean is, if fully subtalar joint goes into supination in a locking position, the talus will also, transverse tarsal joint will also go in supination, and what will happen in supination, the lateral border of the foot will be in weight bearing position, and the chances of getting is medial border will lift up and chances of getting supination sprain will be high. That is, the lateral ligament will get sprained. Fine. So this is the motion. But what happens in cases of pronation? That is a loose packed position of the subtalar joint. When in the loose packed position of a subtalar joint takes place in a weight bearing, and there is the subtalar joint goes into pronation, that is the loose packed position, the chances of the transverse tarsal joint is also it can assume both the condition. That is, it can go into supination and it can go into pronation. That means if it goes into supination, what will happen in it will lock the subtalar joint and it will lock the position for the forefoot, which we have seen in this position, the A position. And what will happen if it goes into the weight bearing and into pronation, what will happen is there will be an opposite twist. That is, if the forefoot has gone into, if the subtalar joint has gone into pronation, the transverse tarsal joint is free to move, whether it can move into supination and pronation. If it moves into pronation, it will bring about a good weight bearing, and it will prevent that spraining of the lateral ligament. So there will be a there will be a different movement which is taking place, and thus to prevent our foot from getting sprained, which happens in an uneven terrain when we walk in an uneven terrain. So this figure was basically to tell you about weight bearing positions. Fine. This figure was basically to tell you about the weight bearing position. So normally in a nutshell, if I can tell you, this means that whenever there is a locking of, in a weight bearing position, whenever there is a locking of subtalar joint in a supination position, there is a locking of the or a close packed position of subtalar joint is in supination. The transverse tarsal joint also goes into supination and locks the foot as a rigid segment. Fine. If the weight bearing in weight bearing position, if the subtalar joint goes into pronation, that is a loose packed position, there the transverse tarsal joint can assume both the position. Either in supination it can go, either in pronation it can go. Now you understand, it can go into supination also, and if it is going to supination, it becomes locked for the forefoot. It becomes a rigid segment for the forefoot to function. Whereas if it goes into pronation, we can basically prevent the lateral ligaments from getting sprained, and we can cause the forefoot to increase the base of support, because what is happening is the lateral surface of the foot is is in touch with the ground, and the medial surface is lifted up, so the base of support has decreased. In order to increase the base of the support, the foot can go into again pronation, and thus increase the weight bearing, and there will be a decrease in chances of getting sprain. Now in today's video, we have studied the role of transverse tarsal joint, that is the midfoot. The hind foot was basically producing the force. The midfoot is basically used to compensate that force. It can either compensate the force or it can dissipate the force. Now if it compensates for the force, it will move. If it wants to transmit the force, it can lock in the supinated position along with the subtalar joint. The mid-tarsal joint can supinate, and the force can be dissipated to the forefoot. Or it can compensate for the force which the hind foot has created, that is in pronation the hind foot has created. So it can compensate by supinating, and what will happen is that there will be less force which will be transmitted to the forefoot. So this is the role of these two joints, talonavicular and calcaneocuboid joint. I hope you have understood the role of transverse tarsal joint. It is a very crucial role which this midfoot takes in order to compensate the forces which have been produced at the hind foot. Fine. And if you have any doubts, please post it in the comment section. Thank you.